Hi, I'm Kathleen Foran, and I'm a student at OCAD in the Criticism and Curatorial Practice Master's program. I've put together this series with OCAD U Live, interviewing second-year grad students about their thesis projects. Last week, I spoke with Claire Grenier about her criticism thesis on repatriation, and today I'm with Megan Hamilton, who's in her final semester of the Interdisciplinary Arts and Media Design program. Thank you for having me in your studio. I'm excited to hear more about your work and to get to see some of it. So the IAMD program supports a pretty wide interdisciplinary practice. What is your niche in this field?
Thanks, Kathleen. Happy to be here. The interdisciplinary program is kind of open to all sorts of different practices. My practice, while I consider it interdisciplinary, it's heavily photo-based, so I'm often working with images, but I work across materials, so using images and combining that with painting and canvas or silkscreen printing. Also have been doing some video work since being here, which is new to me, but also still connected to the idea of like photo-based, image-based work. I use a lot of like found material and installation in my work as well. So it kind of like is hybrid of photo meeting material.
Yeah, cool. And your work deals primarily with themes of grief, loss, and memory. Could you explain a little bit how you're thinking through those subjects?
Yeah, so they're quite broad subject matters. So I feel like there's a lot of different avenues that can be explored under like the umbrella of thinking about like memory, for example. So doing work a lot of times using images and thinking about, how we remember things, how we misremember things, how that is related to trauma and can kind of overflow with that. So thinking about just how traumatic experiences, how grief, how these things start to structure our identity and influence things like our memory. So thinking a lot about that. And with the grief, thinking a lot about just kind of this sense of like being out of time or out of space. So again, like thinking about instances of when you experience trauma and it kind of re-emerges, like that's kind of like the idea with like PTSD is that the traumatic memories or the traumatic lived experience keeps reoccurring. So there's a bit of thinking about that and thinking about, these like repetitions of patterns, but like the kind of this space of kind of being out of time, like not in your normal reality after like experiencing grief or like a traumatic death of a loved one.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The different time cycles.
So thinking about a lot about time and like how it doesn't work in a linear fashion.
No, not at all, especially when it intermeshes with like your emotions and all of these like bodily experiences that are happening. And I can see evidence of these themes just in the work that's around us. It feels like watching time move, but it feels very slow to me looking at some of these, that time is kind of slowing down.
Yeah, I think that's a nice thing about images is like the way that they capture a moment in time. But then it's like you're always kind of experiencing it after the fact. So then, images become this thing that's also kind of out of time and place. So kind of playing with that idea as well. And I think like materially thinking about memory. So like I do image transfers a lot, like you can see in those images. So like leaning into like the deterioration of the image, the decay of the material when thinking about memory and thinking about what parts we lose, you know, and what parts remain once, like, and kind of the idea of like when you're looking back and like things are kind of distorted or altered and not like you can't quite remember things exactly how they happened, and then the idea of like revisiting certain memories like over and over again and how those start to slip and alter like over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They become a story, and then a story that gets retold. And with the found objects, are you also thinking about how other people's memories are it's great, like cool to hear how the materials have their own memory. But yeah, are other people's memories part of it as well?
Yeah, definitely. That's like why I'm drawn to found object is kind of this idea of it having its own history, its own memory, its own life and deaths like connected to it as an object. So I really started working with like found windows. And like for me, the window became this kind of portal or like gateway into thinking about these ideas of like the in-between or the spirit world. So they kind of came this thing, but they had their own essence, their own connections and history that the object already carried. And I found that really interesting. And so since then, I've kind of expanded to working with like lamps and cabinets and kind of more domestic found objects. Like I think there's always kind of this tie to like the domestic or the house objects that I'm drawn to for materials, as well as like for found materials, like natural materials, like working with just like dirt or collecting stones and things. So like collecting dried flowers is a common thing and putting in my work. So yeah, there's this kind of idea of gathering, accumulating, collecting these things, and then they kind of get new life in the studio.
Cool. Oh, it's so distracting to be in the space. I'm like listening to you talk, and then I'm like, oh right, we I can't just
being recorded.
Stare. Yeah. It's beautiful. What is your work process like? Is there like any specific times or places that you like to do your art?
Yeah. So, really like making work outside, especially when it comes to photography. It's like doing that on location in different sites. Since moving back to Toronto, I've kind of had that struggle of like finding those places to make work because like previously I lived in Alberta and it was really easy to just get in a car and drive for an hour and be in the middle of nowhere. And like, so there's lots of exciting things to shoot there. I was always shooting in abandoned barn houses and places like that. So like there was kind of lots of things inspiring me. Whereas like being in the city, I wasn't drawn to that. Like I'm not someone that's like really wants to do like cityscape or like street photography or anything. So I found myself in the cemetery a lot, making work there. And then it kind of became a place where most of the thesis work actually was created. So a lot of that was spending time in there, documenting, going for walks and like writing as well as taking images. So for two of the pieces that will be in my exhibition, I've got a series of Polaroid images that I was shooting in the cemetery. And I actually shot them in more than one cemetery across the city. But the primary cemetery I shoot at is the Mount Pleasant Cemetery, which is, I live right beside it. And it's really old, so there's some like really cool spots within it. Just like seeing the old history of stonework and these kind of thinking about again like preservation and decay and kind of having them both there in the image. So and then a 16 millimeter video work that I shot partially in the cemetery and then partially on Toronto Island, and so that is kind of a video exploring like memory and loss as well. So yeah, the cemetery's been kind of like my solace of a place to make work while being here, which is interesting.
Yeah, no, I know the Mount Pleasant Cemetery. It's so beautiful, and
Yeah.
it feels like not being in Toronto when I step in there. So it's like great that you found a little like work haven in the city.
Yeah, I talk about that in my paper too, just like the idea of like a heterotopia, like Michel Foucault's idea of this kind of place, like the cemetery as a heterotopia. So this place like outside of time or outside of like our everyday life, and like how that space kind of enables us to like be with our grief, or to like step out of the reality of every day and like enter this space. So I was thinking a lot about that, and thinking about that for like creating the exhibition, like creating a space that one can like enter into and be with their grief, or like these emotions and questions about mortality, and be open to that more than we are in our like day-to-day life.
Yeah, to step outside of the routine. And it's great then that also the place becomes kind of a co-creator in the project as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's very impacted by like the environment there, and since I've been making this work, it's been like also trying to capture like the seasons changing. So like, every few months it's like, okay, now there's flowers growing here and weeds growing and popping up with the graves, and then then it's fall, and like there's all of, so like watching the environment around change too has been like a big part of the work, right? And like capturing those things, because that becomes like part of the scene, right? And nature has like such a big play in it. So there's a lot of material like with trees, with plants, and the idea of like the life and death of organic things is like all organic things.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. And is the video work gonna be in the exhibition as well?
Yeah. So that'll be in the exhibition, trying to either project it or have it on a monitor right now, as well as some image transfers, and then some photos from the cemetery series.
Okay, cool. We had spoken about how this is like the work that you came to OCAD to do. This is the work that you're going to continue to do, and it's a much larger body of work than just the thesis project, and that only kind of some of it is going to be in the show. How is it? What is the afterlife of the other elements? How are you going to display those as well?
Yeah, I mean, I hope for other show opportunities to display those, like, but also thinking about how, I want my career to be like outside of school. So doing things like, I know with the cemetery image series right now, I kind of want to push to publishing that into a small book with poetry that is also going to be a part of the thesis. So being able to show that larger body of work, since given like the time and space of the thesis exhibition, not being able to share it all. So that's a project I definitely want to continue once I'm done, as well as I'm sure different things will pick up and lead me in different directions based off of what opportunities are present. But yeah, I think it's such like the subject matter of grief and memory and death is so expansive that it's hard to see an end to it, or like a finality or like a closure. So it's just kind of feels like this never-ending like process of work. Yeah.
I'm so excited about the idea of a photo book as well, especially the way that photo books become these time capsules in your house, and also like the memorabilia that carries so much emotion to it, that having those like emotionally laden images and poems in a photo book would be so lovely.
Thank you. I think it would be really intimate to be able to sit with the work like that.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that I'll be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so alongside the work, you're also writing a research paper. What kind of format does that take for you?
Yeah. So for our program, the research paper is really a support paper for the artwork, right? So talking a lot about just my research, thought process, methodologies, kind of process behind making the work. But my approach to it is trying to be creative in the writing as well, so it reflects, the work properly. So a lot of mine is kind of written in this personal tone, kind of pulling from ideas of autoethnography, and using personal lived experience in conjunction with research and academic sources to kind of offer an insight into these ideas. So there's a lot of kind of personal, vulnerable writing in it. There's a lot of some poetry that I've put in it, and then some of those core research or ideas throughout it. So that's kind of how I'm approaching it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for especially considering how personal and intimate the works are. It's nice that you've found writing styles that go alongside that.
Yeah, it's been really great to read a lot of memoirs or autobiographies by different writers dealing with loss and dealing with their grief. There's a lot of amazing female authors out there, like Joan Didion, for example, who wrote A Year of Magical Thinking, and reading these kinds of very emotional and personal texts has kind of been this allowance to take up that space and do that. So it's been nice to on top of all the theory and kind of academic texts, to just read these life stories of people and how they grapple and cope with what we all have to deal with someday. So
yeah. Oh, it's so exciting to hear how you're intertwining those two fields that are often kept apart, but intersect.
Yeah.
Intersect so frequently. So it's great that you're allowed to explore them side by side.
Yeah, I think that's the real benefit of interdisciplinary program is being able to push the boundaries of disciplinaries, right? So having my artistic voice cross over into my writing voice.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited to see the show. It goes up in March?
Yeah, March 6th to March 10th at Ignite Gallery.
Okay, I'm excited. Okay, and thank you guys for watching.
Thank you so much.